Hey, you guys, it's Peter and Pee-Pee, and we're back. Of course I'm back. Not going anywhere. I'm YouTube famous now. And in case you don't know, I say that in every video, so we voted on it. 94% of the people said keep it. I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and we were getting into like telling stories about like aliens and paranormal stuff, and he was like, Peter, he was like, you're a writer, you love to tell stories. He was like, you have so many stories. Why are you not doing story times on your channel? And I was like, I just don't feel like people are really that interested in my stories. And you know, especially like I was kind of telling this like stalker story, right? That had happened to me like years and years and years ago. And he was like, oh my God, you've got to make a video about that. And I was like, you know what? Shannon Rose, Mojo, all these people have done stalker stories and they get a lot of criticism for it. So I was like, I don't know if I really want to do it, but what the hell? I am going to start doing a lot of story times on my channel. I've kind of had a crazy life. I mean, not like crazy, like traveled the world. I mean, I have done a little bit of that, but not like traveled everywhere and like all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I mean, I've had a normal life, but kind of like a crazy life for a normal life. Does that make sense? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you have that kind of life? You probably do. Like most people have like very normal existences, but they have like strange lives. So anyway, let's get right into my creepy, strange, crazy stalker story. Okay. And this is absolutely 100% true. I swear on my mother's grave, who is actually part of the story. So, flashback to, I was trying to think of what year this was. It was probably like, so I got sober in Christmas of 94. So I met my first boyfriend Halloween of 95. Well, like first like long-term live-in boyfriend. And we were together for 5 years, and this was like at the end of towards the end of our relationship, like halfway towards the end. So probably like 98 is when this happened, 1998. I know this is a little old, but still, it was creepy strange that it happened. So anyway, and you also need to know at the time that we had this very crazy, very aggressive dog that would attack people. So it's interesting how he kind of plays into the story. So here we go. He and my ex's name was Jared, and Jared worked 2 jobs and I worked 1 job. I at the time was a counselor for a treatment center. Jared worked for a music store, and he also worked at, doing room service at a hotel nearby on like second to third shift. He would always bring me home these like amazing desserts, like tiramisu, like just boxes of like tiramisu and chocolate cake. Oh my God, I miss that so much. Anyway, that's not the story. So the first thing that happened that was really, really weird was it must have been like warm in the summer, like beginning of summer, because so our apartment was on the first floor and it was on the corner, and we had like this wraparound porch on it. It was a very cool apartment. So anyway, one night we were watching a movie, and Jared's car was like, so if you're like sitting here like on the corner, right? There was a window right here, and then Jared's car was parked out in front of it. And our TV was like right in front of the window. So we were watching a movie, and I was sitting in the chair, and Jared was sitting in front of me. I think I was like rubbing his shoulders or something, and all of a sudden I see like this flashlight outside, and I was like, oh my God, Jared, what is that? And he was like, I don't know. And so like I ran over and like closed the window, closed the blinds and everything, right? PP said he had to leave. He was like, did you hear that? He was like, this story is too scary for me. So anyway, I was like, Jared, what is that? And he was like, I don't know. So like I ran over and I like shut the window, shut the blinds. In retrospect, stupid. I probably should have looked out there. But, you know, I watched too many horror movies. I always have. And so I was like, oh my God, they're coming to murder us. So anyway, and then I like looked out through the thing and there was like nobody there, right? But before that, it looked like this person with a flashlight was like looking in Jared's car. Like we could see somebody out there, like a flashlight, like looking in his car. You could see it through the window. So anyway, I was like, Jared, you've got to call the police. Like there was somebody out there. And he was like, no, it's really not that big of a deal. And blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, listen, if that comes back, I'm going to beat his ass and blah, 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 whatever, right? He was like, okay, I'll call the police. If you're going to be like that, I'm going to call the police. So he calls the police, and the police like say they're going to be like 20 minutes, right? So our front door is here, and like around the corner where there's like the kitchen is another window that like if you peek out, you can like see the like who's standing in front of the front door, right? So anyway, I was like standing by the window, and all of a sudden we hear I was like, oh my God, who is it? Who is it? And Jared looked at me and he goes, I thought you were going to beat their ass if they came back. I was like, right, that's right, I'm gonna beat their ass. And I like look out the window and it's like these big black boots. I was like, oh my God, Jared, who is it? Who is it? I was like terrified, right? So he opens the door and it's this police officer. It's actually 2 police officers and they were very, very nice. And we told them what had happened and they're like, okay, we'll like patrol the area, but we don't really think, we didn't see anything when we were driving through here. There's nothing strange, yada, 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 right? So we're like, okay, so that was like the beginning of like the summer. And then like nothing happened for like 3 or 4 weeks. And Jared had told me, he was like, there's this guy at work and he's very bizarre and he follows me around and I think that he followed me home one night. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, it's this guy and he's like this older Mexican guy and I think that he like followed me home one night. And I was like, well, is he gay? Is he like, cause like that's exactly where I go, right? Like, is he trying to hook up with my man? And I was like, what's the deal? And he was like, no, he's like 55. He's like married and has kids. I don't know. It's like very bizarre. I don't understand. And I was like, okay. And I kind of forgot about it. Well, simultaneously, we would set out our trash, like we would have all of our trash ready and set it out our front door on like Thursday nights to like go take to the trash bin because they came on Fridays. And like on 2 separate occasions, I remember walking out to work because I was like the first one to leave and the trash was gone. And I was like, that was really nice of like one of our neighbors to take our trash, right? Like I didn't even really think anything about it other than that was really nice of our neighbors to take the trash. Okay, so then like 2 or 3 weeks go by and my mom calls me and she was like, I was by your house yesterday, you never called me back. And I was like, what are you talking about? And my mother was killing for this, okay? That she would stop by the house and she would leave like these Post-it notes like on the door and it would say like, hi honey. I mean, and she would literally, up the whole paper, she would write these little notes, right? And she's like, I left you a note and I said, please call me, it's important, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, what is it? She was like, well, I was at Macy's and I saw these shoes. I was like, what? No, I mean, I don't know what it was, but it was something like that. It was not important, okay? And I said, okay, Mom, I don't have time for this, right? She goes, well, Peter, I've left you like 3 notes. Is Jared taking them and not telling you that like I want you to call me? And I go, what are you talking about? And she's like, I can hear the dog inside. She's like, so I know you guys aren't home because we would leave him caged when we weren't there. And she was like, so I know that you guys aren't there. She was like, but is Jared like getting the note? I go, Mother, Jared loves you. Why would he not tell you or tell me that I had got, the notes have been on the door? She's like, I don't know, but it's very, very strange, right? Okay. So now the trash, the guy in the car, but we're not putting it all together, right? Like Jared and I, very simple. Okay. So we're not putting any of it together. And I think at that point, Jared had actually quit that job because he like had a lot of part-time jobs, like just to make extra money on top of this like music place that he worked at because music's always been like his dream. And so he was always pursuing that. So anyway, so he's not working there anymore. I am at work one day, okay? Flash forward, it's now like 2 months forward. I mean, like nothing has happened, nothing bizarre, anything, right? Flash forward like 2 months, I am sitting in group therapy, all right? I'm a counselor in an adolescent drug treatment program. I'm sitting in group therapy and I can see my supervisor standing in like, we would have one of those slit windows in the door. Slit. And I'm standing there and I'm like, looking at her and she's like, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, I need to talk to you like that. And I'm like, okay. I'm like in the middle of group therapy and like you never interrupted group therapy, okay? Unless like somebody needed to go see the doctor or something like that. It was like you never interrupted group therapy. So I go out in the hallway and she's like, you need to go home. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, we just got a call from your office manager. The police are at your house. Something's going on. You need to call your office manager. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, Peter, she's like, I don't understand it. They just told us it was an emergency and you needed to come home right this second. And I was like, okay. And she's like, I'll watch your group. Don't worry about coming back today. It is what it is, but please call me and let me know what's going on. And I was like, all right, I will. I mean, I had no idea. I was like, did Jared fall? Was there like some accident? I mean, I didn't know, right? Like I had no clue. And so I go home, and I'm like, the whole way I'm trying to like call and like get a hold of this office manager because I had put like my work number down there and Jared's work number, and I'm like, what is going on? So I pull into my apartment complexes. There's 2 entrances, right? I pull into the apartment complex and there's like 6 or 7 cop cars with their lights going off and everything. Well, I'm like, is that to do with me? Like, what is going on? So I keep on pulling down and I go in front of my apartment. Nothing. Nobody in front of my apartment, okay? No office managers, no nothing, whatever, right? So I go to the office and the door's like open and there's like, they're all like, you can tell like there's something going on. They see me walk in. And the male office manager that we had was like a really nice guy, and he had worked there forever, and he actually worked at this other apartment complex that we had lived at too, my friend Chris and I. So I knew him really well. Well, it wasn't him, it was like this woman. And this woman was like, Peter, she was like, you need to go down where those police cars are. That has all to do with you. And I was like, what's going on? Like, I got really nervous. Like, have you ever like walked into a situation where you like have no idea what's going on? I was like, what? Like, I thought somebody had died or something. Like, I was terrified, right? So she's like, you need to go down there. Brian will explain it to you. Brian was the manager. She's like, Brian will explain it to you. So I go down there. And like, I get out of my car, I park, and like the police officer and the manager, Brian, walks up there, and Brian's like shaking his head. And I'm like, what is going on? And he was like, Peter, I've been calling you all morning at work. And I was like, what happened? And he was like, okay, so we were having complaints from the woman upstairs, that lives upstairs, that it sounded like somebody was in your apartment and your dog was like going crazy trying to get out of the cage. And I was like, my dog was absolutely silent, never barked, we never got complaints about our dog. And he was like, I knew it was really strange because we've never had any complaints about your dog. And I was like, okay. He was like, so I walked over there because I told her I would take a look at it. And he was like, when I walked over there, there was a guy like breaking into your apartment. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, it was this like older Mexican gentleman, blah, 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 whatever. So he was like, he didn't see me walking up. So like I walked away, and on my cell phone, I called the police. And I was like, okay. So he was like, the police were there like in an instant, and they like followed him out and they trapped him in. So he was over there, right? So I see this guy, and he's like in the back of the police car. Like, they will not let him out for me to see him, right? And I'm like, well, I want to talk to him. I want to know what's going on. And Brian's like, no, you're going to have to talk to the police department. You have to go to the police department, all this kind of stuff. And he goes, but we need to ask you something. Like, can you please come here? So the office manager and the police officer walk me in this police car where this guy is sitting inside, and I'm now like, who is this Looney Tunes? Okay, trying to get into my apartment. Like, now it's like kind of like, you know when it's like slowly, like you're reading a mystery book and it like all comes together? I was like, what is going on, right? I immediately jumped to thinking that like maybe he was like having an affair with my boyfriend, which wouldn't make any sense. I mean, this guy was like totally legit, normal. I mean, like I say it now and it's like, yeah, well, it could still be, right? But that wasn't the case. So anyway, I go over there and they have it in my trunk, right? Or in the trunk of his car. They walk me over to the trunk of his car, not the police car. Back there, they have all these Ziploc bags that he had been keeping my mother's notes. And like he had gone through our trash and like ripped up notes that we had given to each other, like left and like thrown away. And like he had taped them back. He had like creepy, strange shit back there in his Ziploc bags. He had like food boxes that we had eaten. It was the strangest. I said, and so the police officer was like, is this your stuff? I was like, those are my mother's notes that she's been leaving on my door now for like months. She says that I'm not getting. I was so creeped out. So the police officer was like, well, we're going to file a statement. We're going to take him in. And we're going to press charges for him like breaking and entering. And I was like, okay. And he was like, but you guys have got to file a restraining order. I was like, all right. So Jared comes home that like after, because he was supposed to be home like an hour after that anyway. So he comes home and I'm like telling him all about it and stuff. He is like spooked beyond belief, all right? He is like, and this is on the heels of him like locking up the music store in the mall and a guy hiding behind one of the cabinets and had a gun. Excuse me, and made him like, and like the guy robbed the store and Jared was the only one in the store. He was totally terrified, right? So anyway, this is like on the heels of that. Now he's got this like stalker. Now we've got this stalker that's like coming to our house. I'm like totally like, what's going on? And Jared's like, we have to file the restraining order. And I was like, I know. Well, to file a restraining order, okay, is not just like you go down to the police department, pay $20 and file a restraining order. You like have to go to court, right? It's like this whole process. It's very weird. I was all spooked by this guy. The police department told us that they pressed charges. He made bail, and that his case wasn't going to be for like 60 days or something like. So I knew he was out there, and I didn't know what his intention was. So anyway, we file a restraining order. We go to court that day, okay? And we're standing outside of court until like our name is called. And I look over and this guy walks in. Are you ready for this? With his wife and like 3 kids. I was like, this is so weird. Why would you come to like a restraining order where you are breaking and entering into this with your wife? And like, it didn't any of it make sense. And so we go into court, right? And the guy's like sitting next to us and the judge is like asking about the case and whatever. And so like Jared gets up and explains how he knows him, that he knew him through work. This guy worked with him, that Jared no longer worked there, blah, 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 whatever. And this guy was like, so the judge asks the guy, he's like, what's your intention? And the guy's like, I'm going to be with him. And the judge looked so confused and like looked at us, and Jared's like, no. And he was like, I'm going to be with him. I'm in love with him. And I was like, what? And I like look over, and the wife is like sitting there completely normal, like she has no idea, right? And the judge addresses her, and she says she doesn't speak any English. And the kids are sitting there, and they're just like these little kids. I felt so devastated for this woman. I mean, like, it was the weirdest situation I've ever seen in my entire life. Well, not the weirdest situation. I've had lots of weird situations. But I felt so bad for this woman, and she had no clue. And the judge is, like, trying to talk to her. She had no concept of English whatsoever. And so, the judge was like trying to get somebody that was Spanish speaking. They couldn't get somebody in there and whatever. And so the judge was like, well, I'm going to like, respect this restraining order. And he was like, you have it was like, I think for like a year and a half, it was like 18 months. I don't know what it was back then, but like there's always a time limit on a restraining order. Then you have to file another one. Well, so we got the restraining order. And the whole way out, this guy is just like staring a hole through Jared. And we got in the car, and Jared like lost his shit. He was like, I am so scared. Like that totally freaked me out. Well, flash forward, we never hear again from this guy. We didn't refile the restraining order. We must have still been together like 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years later, because I remember asking Jared, like, do you want to refile this restraining order? He was like, no, we don't need to do that. And we hadn't heard from that guy, and then Jared and I broke up, and he went on his way, and he never did end up with that guy, so the guy didn't get his wish. But isn't that so strange? It's like people become obsessed with people for the strangest reasons. It's very weird, like it's terrifying kind of, to like know that there could be somebody out there for like the smallest reason that would become obsessed with you, and not like in a kind or compassionate way, but in a very weird kind of bizarre way. So that is my stalker story. And I've actually had another one. Actually, when I met my husband, he had a stalker and I had a stalker. And this guy, when we would be out at bars, well, that's for another time. So anyway, I love you guys so much. I'm daily vlogging every day for the year of 2017. It's listed below. Follow me on all my social media. I'm super active. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.